Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater, and tonight we're just gonna do something basic, something simple, just one topic to kind of talk it out for maybe 20, 30 minutes. See who pops up, see who's here, see what's going on. But as you can tell from the title of this video, I wanted to call it the Dave Batista conundrum, and this has a lot to do with the fact that Dave Batista, love him or hate him, and I think most people out there really love the guy, is possibly going to single-handedly sink the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, that is an odd opinion to hold considering where things have been, but for those who are new to the party, who've been in a coma when it comes to movie news and conversation over the course of the past couple of weeks, what happened is that Disney fired James Gunn over a series of tweets spanning a couple years that weren't funny. They were clearly stupid joke tweets that weren't funny at all. And as a result of this, the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy, as well as Dave Batista, has come out and been, I guess you could say, vocal about their support of James Gunn. No one more than Batista, honestly. But they showed their support last week. The day afterward, it came out that there was, in fact, some rumblings going on over there at Disney, going on over there behind the scenes, that they were maybe possibly considering bringing him back, bringing Gunn back. And then the next day, everything was kind of tossed for a loop once again when it turns out that wasn't the case. Now, the difference between that situation and the next day situation is that the first day, the guys reporting on it were kind of a little bit green behind the ears when it comes to reporting for Variety. And then the guys the next day were some senior level dudes who had the inside track as to what's going on with Hollywood. And unfortunately, that is just where things ended up. There's been no movement since then. But now, today, we come across this one where it says Batista wants out of his Guardians 3 contract if Disney scraps the James Gunn script. That's a bold move. That's a bold move that I quite frankly, I didn't think the cast had it in them, to be honest with you. I did not think that the cast had it in them to go and go this particular route and go this particular way. I didn't think that was going to be the case. Turns out I was wrong. Turns out I was very wrong. After last week, you figure they would have taken their shot. They would have banded together. They would have stood up to the House of Mouse, shown Alan Horn, shown Bob Iger, shown Kevin Feige that they are one, that the Guardians is a team. But unfortunately, things don't always work out the way you want them to. And it seems that Dave Batista, it doesn't back down that quickly. And I actually have to give the guy massive credit here. Now, it says here that Disney's decision to fire James Gunn as director and writer of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 continues to be the sloppiest thing it's done since the studio made a bunch of racist films in the 1940s. Material since it has since apologized for and moved on from. What a concept! The latest news, Dave Batista, who plays Guardians member Drax the Destroyer, has hinted that he will not be a part of the franchise's third film if Disney scraps Gunn's already completed screenplay. And the thing is, that's true, because we know here that just a few weeks ago, like literally a month before shit went down with Michael Cernovich, right? With those tweets popping out, just before all that went down, the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 script was finished, says James Gunn, basically saying James Gunn took to Twitter to post a picture of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 script with a caption that reads, "Every bit of my heart." This caption leads many to believe that we're going to be in for an emotional ride this time around, which is pretty much no different from what we've seen from the previous 2 installments. All of the Guardians have heartbreaking stories that have been touched in one way or another, plus there's the events of Infinity War that need to be taken into account as well. So basically, what we know here is that the script is going to have it is every bit James Gunn's heart. It is every bit a conclusion to the story he started in 2014 with the release of Guardians of the Galaxy. It is, in fact, a continuation of Marvel's probably greatest trilogy at this point in time. So you can understand why Dave Batista is acting the way that he's acting. You can understand why Dave Batista very much wants to fight back. So talking to Shortlist, Batista says it would be a disservice to the fired filmmaker if he honored his contractually obligated Guardian 3's duties. Saying here, where I'm at right now is that if Marvel doesn't use that script, then I'm going to ask them to release me from my contract. Cut me out or recast me. I'll be doing James a disservice if I didn't. Now, I don't believe that's true, to be honest with you. I don't believe that's true. I don't think he would be doing James a disservice if he, in fact, took over the role or continued the role, finished it out, okay, saw it through to the end. I don't think he would be. And I say that because every bit of my heart is what Gunn has said. So these characters are still every part of him. And he would still want to see it completed, whether he is attached or not. And quite frankly, in order to make all of this really go away, this ultimatum that Batista is giving them, this ultimatum that Batista is putting out there, is kind of, I think, the best we're going to get, as sad as that is. I really don't think we're going to be able to get much more out of it. Now, the actor who comes from the pro wrestling world of WWE has since shined comedically in the Guardians films, and much more subdued performances like Blade Runner 2049. Also made note by his far more fiery response to the situation compared to his co-stars, who, to their credit, did come out in full support of James Gunn, saying here, nobody's defending his tweets, but this was a smear campaign on a good man. I spoke to Chris Pratt the day after it happened, and he's a bit religious, so he wanted time to pray and figure it out. I was a bit more, fuck this. This is bullshit. James is one of the kindest, most decent people I've ever met. And that kind of makes sense as to what Batista's up to. You can see here a whole bunch of photos of him in the role. I mean, like, he's embraced it wholeheartedly. Drax the Destroyer is a fun character. And to not have these guys all back on set together one last time for one last ride does feel like a disservice to the franchise. It really, 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 really does. But the point here is that we've got to deal with the business, right? And I'm just saying, like, you know, I get where he's at. I get what's going on. And here's the biggest problem thus far. The biggest problem that we're going to find out from Batista is that he says that it's nauseating to make Guardians of the Galaxy 3 after James Gunn's firing. Now, that's true. He came out and he basically attacked Disney. He attacked Marvel. And he said that, you know, this is nauseating. This is terrible. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't want to be involved in this if you don't use his script. And I think Batista, if I had to summarize it, right? If I had to summarize it, for one, I completely agree that Batista is doing this 100% on principle. I completely agree that he's trying to see the end of this story in the best possible way that he can. I think he's very much trying to go to the mats for his friend, you know. And the thing is, like, I think when I could be wrong on this one. I could be, just completely not know what I'm talking about here. But I've always kind of been under the impression that if you're ever in a sport with somebody, you know, and you're really bonded, like football, baseball, basketball, WWE, that you are loyal to a fault. And Batista always has struck me as a kind of guy who's extremely loyal. And you can see that he's coming out there right now and he is making waves in order to make sure that his friend's voice is heard, right? When certain parts of the internet tried to shut him up and he did in fact go away, Batista is who I'm referring to. You know, he jumped up and he was like, "No, I'm not gonna sit there. I'm not gonna not say anything about this. This guy's one of my best friends. This guy's been an excellent boss to me. This dude has brought me into a world that I absolutely love, and I'm gonna sit there and try to repay the favor. I'm gonna sit there and try to repay this entire situation. I'm gonna sit there and try to repay everything that I can about this particular film, this particular situation." And I feel like it's for the best that they just at least give the screenplay. Now, look, I've argued in favor of James Gunn being rehired. I still hold that opinion. That opinion is never, ever going to go away. But I can understand the situation, okay? Like, you know, I can understand the situation. Like, it doesn't, you know, James Gunn not directing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 doesn't impact my life in a negative or positive. My pushing on this issue, my talking about this issue stems from the place of I believe he was done dirty, and I'm sick and tired of people who are done dirty. And so I have a platform. I'm going to use it to speak out my opinion. There are people there who don't like my opinion, and that's entirely fine. I don't care if you don't like my opinion, but I'm still going to espouse what I believe in my heart. And I believe that James Gunn was screwed, which is, I think, one of the reasons why that every time Bautista says something, I'm right there with him. You know, I'm right there with him, like kind of linked in arms, like, yeah, man, like, you know, screw these assholes that are trying to get people fired. And here we've seen today with Alex Jones being taken down, right? It's just, it's not the same situation in regards to everything. But again, it boils down to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the ability to make a bad joke, or the ability to pitch a conspiracy theory about the freaking frogs turning gay, which ultimately does have some basis in scientific fact, but let's not tell Alex Jones that, because it really does go to his head. The point is that we're in this weird age, really weird age, where social media rules our lives in many ways, and social media rules where we stand in many ways, and it can elevate us, or it can destroy us, quite literally, with the click of a goddamn button, right? And we've seen it destroy more than it's built, and yet people out there realize, they understand, they comprehend how bad it is. They comprehend that this is not the way we should be living our lives. This is not the way we should be doing things, but yet we find ourselves in this rat trap constantly. So you got someone like Dave Bautista who's coming out and saying, no more. I'm standing up to this. It's nauseating to work for this company after this whole shit has gone down, because as he says, this was, and it wasn't like he said that working for them is nauseating. I do want to make sure that I have his quote here 100%, so we don't go overboard. He says here, I will do what I'm legally obligated to do, but Guardians without James Gunn is not what I signed up for. Guardians without James Gunn just isn't Guardians of the Galaxy. It's also pretty nauseating to work for someone who'd empower a smear campaign by fascist #cybernazis. That's just how I feel. Now, the nauseating part's been picked up on quite a bit by by people in the media that are trying to, you know, that they offer some context, but it's in the title, right? That's why I titled this video the Dave Bautista Conundrum, because this is where not only are we going to see a division amongst fans who are probably going to stand behind Bautista, but are they going to go to the theaters to go see this movie? Is Disney going to sit there and take away from this? Are they going to say, screw it, it's really not worth the hassle? Are they going to just, you know, scrap James Gunn's script, bring in somebody else, push back the release of the film, force everybody to come in contractually, and go from there? Now, here's the thing with this. Here's how I think this could play out in a couple different ways, okay? And I have a couple different theories about this, but at the same time, one of my theories ultimately boils down to, like, you know, like more kind of just fan fiction-y sort of thing, in a perfect world, so to speak, but also what could probably realistically happen. Now, I'm going to go with the what could possibly realistically happen before I jump into the fan thing. You know, I'll do the fan thing first, so screw it. So here's the fan thing. All right, Bautista is good friends with Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, right? And those guys. Working together on these movies, been with them, right? So if he stands up and he's like, if they don't do the script, I'm going to back out. Now, that is an ultimatum, and one that Disney could easily kind of sway in his direction, right? Because they've already got the script done. We learned about that from the end of June. All right. We know that it's every bit of heart James Gunn has. And this is probably one of the reasons why Bautista is, if anything, trying to do this. We know that James Gunn is already going to end up getting the executive producer credit. So if there is a bit of pushback internally, and I do feel that the way Disney handled it was ultimately stupid. I think Alan Horn jumped the gun. Bob Iger might have given him his blessing, but I feel that they both should have just like held off on it for a couple days. But also, let's be fair here, the $71.3 billion Fox deal is one of the big reasons why this was a thing. So, I mean, obviously that's kind of come into it. So what we have is we've got that. Now we got Bautista coming out and saying, like, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'll do, or this is what I'll request if they don't do this. Now, if Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana come out and say the same thing, you know, now they didn't give an ultimatum last week, which I think was good. They're professionals. And this isn't necessarily an ultimatum. He says he'll do what he's legally obligated to do. But let's be fair. If an actor doesn't want to act, if an actor doesn't want to act at all, then, you know, they're going to phone it in. So Disney could just fire his ass. Could fire all of them, or just cancel it altogether if they decide to stand up and lock arms once again to try to do one final push. Now, the last thing Disney really wants in all of this, let's be fair, the last thing they really want is negative publicity. Okay, so they feel they can weather this storm of fans who want him hired back versus what would happen if they maybe piss off the heartland of America, that they look at this sort of thing and they think, oh, well, Disney is rehiring a person who made these really horrible jokes. The thing is, though, is since the entire idea behind the Guardians of the Galaxy ultimately boils down to redemption of someone being an asshole, being selfish, which is ultimately what all the characters in that movie are until they're together, which then makes them better because they all make each other better, then that could be one of those things where Disney could use that as this is a call to action to be better. They could sit there, and if they really want to play it right, they could sit there and they could really disarm a whole bunch of Trump supporters by pulling from Melania Trump's Be Best campaign, right? And sit there and go, look, we understand that there have been problems in the past, but we understand that people here want to be better, so they want to be best. Right. And they want to play that. They could do this whole PR campaign and bring it back in. And you know what? It would actually smooth over a lot of it. And by the time the movie even remotely came out, people would pretty much kind of like end up looking the other way. I think most people would probably not care, to be honest with you. I think that'd probably be a realistic thing. You'd get some people out there that would come out there and make videos, maybe get upset about it on Twitter. But at the same time, when it comes to the box office numbers, bringing James Gunn back is probably going to end up doing better for them than not, because here's the thing. If they do a Guardians, and this is where I kind of get into more of like the realistic side of things, not so much the fan thing. The fan thing would be they all stand up, lock arms, say we're going to quit, or else, you know, if you don't use the script, you know, sort of thing. And then they cave. That's more of a fan thing, and I'll admit that. But realistically speaking, and here's just my thoughts on this one, would be if Disney were to take this particular subject matter, or this particular story, this particular Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and bring in Taika Waititi, because that's right now what everyone pretty much wants. There is a movement of people out there who want Mel Gibson to direct Guardians 3, and I'm actually not against that at all. I'm not against that at all. Them bringing in Mel Gibson to direct Guardians 3, by the way, you know, but then again. Think about that one for a hot minute, right? Mel Gibson, and this was 12 years ago, got drunk, got arrested for a DUI in Malibu, and made a lot of choice comments about the Jews, right? That was 12 years ago. Took him a little bit of time, but now he's kind of back in Hollywood's good graces, right? You can always, the whole point here is that you can always come back if you play the game. Now, Gunn right now, realistically, is playing the game. He's kept his head down. He's kept his mouth shut. He's, you know, who knows what he's working on. You know, tons of other studios in town have already called him. You know, all of these companies are trying to get his attention right now, but he's probably holding out for a little bit, for one, for this to kind of die down, and two, to see whether or not they come to the table with maybe an offer. Because like I said, Gunn will get an executive producer credit. And if this is made, and they should just take a script. They should just take a script and make the movie and do that and call that a day. That would be the easiest method. But let's talk about the other method, the one I keep talking about. If they really want to scrap everything, if they really want to take this in a different direction, and it all boils down to one character who many people would argue, is probably the number one character outside of Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. Okay, if you look at the movie, that kind of ensemble film, from a particular character's perspective, right? Like in the first Avengers movie, the character with whom we were following on that journey was Captain America. And you could argue that with Avengers Infinity War, the character that we were following on their journey to see it completed essentially was Thor. It starts off with Thor, and it ultimately ends with Thor having thrown the axe, Stormbreaker, not hitting Thanos, and then not chopping his head off. Now, in the Avengers Infinity War director's commentary, there's this great little nugget there about that. They actually talk a bit about Thor. They talk a bit about his connection to Thanos, and they talk a bit about whose film it really is. Because I think anyone who's seen Avengers Infinity War would argue that it's kind of a Thanos movie, which makes sense because they spent all this time beefing him up. So then to give him the lion's share of the film, I think really worked out well. But otherwise, though, from a hero perspective, it's straight up Thor. And if Thor would have thrown Stormbreaker just a foot north, just a foot, it would have been a Thor movie. It would have ended on a Thor kill. It would have started with Thor, ended with Thor, would have been a Thor movie. Now, The reason why I bring this up is because Chris Hemsworth's career is crap, right? His career outside of Marvel is very bad. The best thing for his career that he's ever done probably is go and be in Ghostbusters, which, let's be fair, if anything good came out of that dumpster fire of a movie, Chris Hemsworth's, his role was pretty good. He was pretty funny. And as a result of that comedy, they moved that into Thor Ragnarok, and that worked out really well. Audiences really, really, really resonated with it. And that carried over into Avengers Infinity War. The side adventure between with Thor, Groot, and Rocket was pretty fantastic, showing that he has a solid chemistry with these characters. So if what they were going to do was take the concept, right? Here's what I'm pitching. If they're going to bring in Taika Waititi, bring in Chris Hemsworth, make it Thor and the Guardians. Drax can be there or not. I'd love him to be there, but quite frankly, they could go another direction with it. Replace Drax with Chris Hemsworth, and then have him effectively lead them on an adventure, and then have that be the next family dynamic. Because at this point, Thor, from what we know at this point, is kind of looking for a family. We know Valkyrie survived, but Loki's dead. Jane dumped him. His father's gone, and his land is destroyed. So he's kind of looking for anything he can right now, and he's got the Avengers, but it's really kind of on an on-call basis. You see him every couple years at the reunion after you take out some alien scum, and that's really about it. But if he brings the Guardians with him and they head off into the cosmos in order to save the day, that could be something worth doing. Imagine a Thor 4 that's also Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, Marvel would be able to, at this point, effectively kill two birds with one stone by creating kind of a mini Avengers film, like the Revengers, as we kind of joked about that was joked about in Thor Ragnarok. And I think that could be an easy way to keep the Guardians around in their final film, give Thor another movie because people are wanting it at this point, because he kind of was the hero of Avengers Infinity War, and I think a lot of people weren't even expecting that to be a thing. I think a lot of people were coming into Avengers Infinity War going like, dude, it's another fucking Iron Man movie. This is what I want to see, right? And then, of course, end up Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 by kind of transferring over to Stallone's crew and whatever it was that they were doing at the end of Guardians 2, which was clearly going to be where things went after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because we learned about that a while ago. So whatever James Gunn had started kind of setting up, Disney needs to either keep that going or alter it by bringing in Thor to take up the place, to kind of come on in and be that next level. Because if all of a sudden now you've got Guardians of the Galaxy teaming up with Thor, and even that becomes its own maybe trilogy of films, given the success of Ragnarok, given the success of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and having the right screenwriter who can bring the heart and bring the comedy, which is what those two films, at least Ragnarok and Guardians, do very well together. I think Marvel would have itself an epic action adventure comedy, unlike anything we've ever seen before. So, I mean, as much as I want Gunn to come back, and I still will always call for that, and I don't want Dave Bautista to quit. In the offset chance that Disney sticks to their guns, well, not the offset chance, they're probably going to, but they stick to their guns, and the offset chance that Bautista just says screw it and he's loyal to a fault, he does it on principle and he quits, that could be a thing. That could be where things kind of tend to drift off to. And I do think that ultimately we as fans would actually end up being okay with this, even though there's that upset up front. In the end of it, we probably would end up being more okay than not, and it would take the MCU in a totally different direction. And I think, to be fair, if I'm being honest here, I have a feeling that this decision necessarily will kind of base itself on whether or not Captain Marvel does well. Right now, Captain Marvel, I think, is going to make or break a fair amount of where things are going. If Captain Marvel is not a home run, knock it out of the park, good movie that really does do well to tie into the larger frame of the MCU, then I don't think we're going to end up dealing with it. I don't think we're going to see a lot here out of it. I think they're going to probably try to pivot off to something else that they know is profitable, that people actually want to see. And since no one I know personally in real life, as well as the YouTube space, is even remotely excited to check out Captain Marvel, I really don't think that I really don't think that people are going to do it. But that's just what I think. I could be wrong. But anyway, I want to know what you guys think, so be sure to let me know. And yeah,